Today in the show, we're going to be talking about death in both Marvel and DC. If you didn't know that DC's Death is considered one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, then this show is for you. First, we're going to talk about Death in the Marvel Universe. She would first appear in Captain Marvel number 27 in 1973. So, personifying death in any medium is really hard. And basically, in the Marvel Universe, the character of Death only exists so long as creatures continue to die. So death is actually part of something called the Cosmic Compass. Now the Cosmic Compass has death, eternity, oblivion, and infinity. Eternity is the living embodiment of the universe and time itself. As time keeps flowing, so does eternity. Oblivion is actually just a piece of death. So whereas death is the embodiment of the end of life, oblivion is the embodiment of the absence of life. And finally, there is infinity, who is an aspect of eternity, who is the living embodiment of the universe, ever expanding and never ending. So with that in mind, obviously oblivion and infinity are not their own beings, so if death were to stop existing, so would oblivion. Death in the Marvel Universe has quite a classic appearance, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not very experimental. She has a black robe, and sometimes there's boobs under there, and sometimes there's not. Although it is worth saying that sometimes she's seen as a white woman with skin, but this is really rare. I can only think of one occurrence off the top of my head where this has actually happened. So Death has never had her own storyline. She's always been a goal or a plot device or an aspect of someone else's storyline, primarily Thanos. Basically, in the first appearance of Death, Thanos tried to take over the universe and destroy all life to show his love for death. Eventually, Thanos would be stopped by the Avengers, Captain Marvel, and Drax, and Death would kind of be like, you know what, Thanos, you kind of suck, and I don't like your booty, so I'm out. It is worth saying that Thanos would have many storylines trying to win over Death's heart, and eventually this would lead to his death. When Captain Marvel dies, it's actually Thanos that introduces him to Death, and this actually causes Captain Marvel to willingly embrace Death. Eventually, Death would realize that there was a shift in the universe, and there was more life than death in the universe, and that cannot happen because if that happened, Death loses power. So she resurrects Thanos and basically says, "Bring about death so I regain power." So Thanos would go about collecting infinity gems, and he would become so powerful that he was superior to Death, and because of that, Death could not communicate with him. Now it is worth saying eventually Thanos would be stopped, he would lose the infinity gems, and Death would actually be one of the reasons why he was stopped. Deadpool is a character that one or two of you might know, and Death has a crush on Deadpool, which is very much explored in the Deadpool comics. Basically, Deadpool has a lot of near-death experiences, and because of this, he frequently gets to meet Death, and he eventually grows to have a crush on her. And eventually, Deadpool is dying, like he's near death, he is going to die, and Death reveals that she has feelings for Deadpool too, but then Thanos stops Deadpool from dying, so Death curses Thanos with immortality. Thanos continues to have a crush on Death, and eventually when Death and Thanos have to destroy their offspring, Rot, Death lays down the law for Thanos and basically says, "I do not like you, I don't have any feelings of love for you, just please leave me alone." It's very interesting to see Death involved in love storylines. I would like to see something else from Marvel's Death, because you don't really see much else from her. Personally, I would like to see all the cosmic beings get their own series, but at the same time, that could be done really badly, so I can kind of see why Marvel aren't doing that. So DC's Death, which is one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, had a much less classic design, so with that being said, it shouldn't be a surprise to you that she first appeared in The Sandman in 1989. This being said, there have been a few different versions of Death in the DC universe, and it's never fully explained if they're the same person, if they're different aspects of the same person, or if it's all just different beings. Now, Death in the DC universe actually breaks all the norms of what you would expect from this character. Like, first off, it is her job to guide spirits to the next realm of existence once they die, but she also visits people as they are born. Also, in appearance and personality, she breaks all of the social norms as well. To begin with, she is this punk goth girl that looks like she just doesn't care, and next off, she is fun, nurturing, and she really cares for everyone. She was actually voted 15th greatest comic book character of all time by Empire magazine. Like the Marvel Universe Death, the DC Universe Death is part of a group, but this time, she is part of a group called the Endless. The Endless consist of Death, Dream, Destruction, Destiny, Despair, Delirium, and Sandman. I know what you're thinking, one of these things is not like the other, and that's actually because Sandman is Dream's replacement, but that's something we're going to get into in Dream and Sandman's own video. The Endless are very, very advanced. They have their own system going on. They're very intricate, and as such, I think they are much better than the Cosmic Compass. Part of Death's job is to bring about the end of the universe when the last living being dies off, meaning that she will be the only thing alive once the universe ends, and as such, she can exist outside of reality, which I think is amazing. We have actually seen Death's realm, and she has her own apartment and goldfish, and it's like her own home, and it looks really, really cozy. Death is the second oldest of the Endless, and the most powerful and the most mature. She came into existence just before the first being was born. It's also worth saying that it is implied that there is one death for the entire DC multiverse, meaning if a character died in the Young Justice cartoon, they would be visited by the same death as someone who died in the DC comics. In theory, this means that Death knew about Flashpoint, knew about Prime Earth, knew about New Earth, and still remembers Earth 1. And I think that's quite an interesting rabbit hole to get down, but I know DC will never do that. Death would appear here and there, but she would never have an overarching storyline. I think her main appearance is actually when Lucifer quits looking after Hell. Basically, when Lucifer retires from Hell, a whole bunch of souls would escape, and it's up to Death to do her normal workload and take all of those souls back to Hell. Eventually, a guy named Charles Rowland would die, and his friend Edwin was actually an escaped soul, and Charles refused to go to Hell without Edwin, so Death allowed the two of them to remain on Earth as ghosts until she lightened her workload. Now, what I would like to see from this Death is a storyline where the universe has ended and she has been on her own for millions of years. Basically, she's been alone for millions of years, she's gone crazy, regained her sanity, and now she's more than happy being alone. She's just in her house, doing her daily thing alone because no one else can exist, no one else has existed for millions of years, and then she hears a knock at her door. Turns out that existence is back, and along with it came life, and Death has to figure out where the hell it came from. I think if DC did a story like that, they should do it in the Vertigo imprint and really just go all out with it, because that's what DC does best. It goes without saying that I really do prefer DC's version of Death to Marvel's version of Death, just because although DC's version of Death hasn't really had that many appearances, she's made a huge impact. It's super effective! Okay guys, that is it for today. If you think I forgot anything important about either version of Death, please let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more history, and also don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.